Welcome back to Tech Talks from Commercial Baking. I'm your host, Joni Spencer. In this episode, sponsored by Middleby Bakery, I am speaking with Scott McCallie, president of Autobake Serpentine and Guerreri Food Processing Technology, both Middleby brands. And we are discussing the technical aspects of Middleby Bakery's full line solutions for automated decorated cake lines within their sweet goods category. Hi, Scott. Thanks so much for joining me today. It's good to see you.
Hey, Tony, good to see you again, and thanks for the time.
So, okay, let's start out by talking about what you are seeing and hearing from your customers who produce decorated cakes. Really, what are some of the challenges that they're seeing in this realm?
Yeah, first, Tony, just a little bit about where the global cake market is today. I mean, it's estimated about $85 billion. $50 billion is retail decorated cakes. So in the U.S., decorated cake represents about 12 to 15 billion in annual sales. So a pretty big piece. It's growing quite fast. Compounded annual growth rate of about 5%. So the biggest challenge is perhaps listening to these numbers, just the market demand, which is, it's a good problem to have. Granularly within that demand is this significant competition driven primarily by creativity and customization. So decorated cakes really are two things. So it's dessert cakes and it's celebration cakes, whole cakes, right? So it's the most premium product category in the whole bakery industry. It delivers the highest margins, but it also delivers the highest headaches for the producers. Those headaches include things like very high labor cost. I mean, even with automation, most existing technologies require a little bit of touch up as well as some manual decoration where there just doesn't exist technology for that automated application. Another headache is very high scrap material cost. I mean, on the range of 5 to 15%. And scrap material it's the raw material that gets left behind in the process. It includes both, the base cake from slicing and trimming, as well as just the higher cost of icings and creams and decorative particulates that are left behind on the tools and the equipment. And then lastly, kind of a big headache can be just a high SKU count, right? A lot of frequent changeovers, long labor-intensive changeover times. It can take as long as 6 hours sometimes to clean the equipment and set up the line for the next product.
So when we're talking about product development, I mean, you're bringing up things that I think a lot of us take for granted when we think about decorated cakes that are made at scale and those intricacies that come with it. So when we are looking at product development, what are these bakers? What do they need? And I'm talking about specifically like seasonal cake varieties, because those are very specific. And then you even mentioned creativity. So then there's having to come up with all new different types of cake varieties to keep up with that creative competition. So what are the primary considerations? What do they need and what do they need to consider and be aware of just to keep the operation running smoothly when they're developing these new varieties?
Yeah, and we're in one of those seasons right now. What's coming up? So these decorated cakes, dessert cakes, every producer will have kind of their standard, which are quite nice, of course. But then you have things like Valentine's Day, and so maybe it's a heart shape, or maybe it's just a different color, whatever it is. But so the first thing really is, do we have the right equipment? New tooling for existing equipment, and it can be designed and delivered, in as little as 4 to 6 weeks. But completely new equipment is more like 8 to 12 months. So the alternative is always adding laborers, which introduces and exasperates, all the challenges that we already know of. It's 7 out of 10 times, that's the typical solutions that bakers choose. We're just going to throw more people at it, which is the reason why mass-produced decorated cakes, they sell from $5 each up to $99 each. Along the same line, it's, do I have flexible equipment? For example, robotic decorating has become very popular. It offers nearly endless design creativity. You just change the program, you change the tool, and you can do something a little bit different, right? But its limitation is that nearly all robotic decorating solutions, they can only produce one cake at a time, which could mean that the output is just too low for the production demand. Second is just like the first, do we have the right equipment? But in this case, it's, for the type of icing, which is at the core of the decoration. Most industrial cake producers in the US, they're leaning towards sugar-based icings for decorations. In Europe and Asia, it's a much broader use of fat-based creams. And these are two completely different flavor profiles. There are different processing challenges, and they require completely different equipment. Fat-based creams They're aerated. You need precise temperature control throughout the entire process. It's an emulsification that's got to remain homogeneous, not just during production processing, but through the entire supply chain life cycle. So due to their very low specific gravity, they've got to be processed under really low pressure and low shear without losing application weight tolerance. Sugar-based icing, on the other hand, they're much more resilient to processing dynamics. I mean, it's why they're largely used and more prevalent in high-volume industrial cake lines. Sugar-based icings are also water-soluble, so they're easy to clean with just hot water. Fat-based creams require multi-step cleaning that include a hot caustic foam and then acid rinse at the least.
So when we're looking at cake lines as a whole, where are those specific pain points? And then also, I'm curious because you mentioned that sometimes the solution is throw more people at it. That's much easier said than done these days. So then when you look at skills gaps and labor shortages, where are the pain points that you all are trying to help your customers with?
Yeah. All right. So Joni, if you will, just close your eyes for just a second. And just imagine a 4 or 6 layer specially decorated cake. Yum. I mean, beautiful, right? But now imagine up to 3,300 of those per hour coming at you. That's 55 finished cakes per minute. That's like, no,
Right. Like, okay, you're giving me panic.
That sounds like a nightmare. The number one pain point is actually weight accuracy. Can you imagine a decorated cake and everything that goes into it, right? And all those things, the precision of tolerance for each piece of that decoration has to be spot on. So the least expensive component of the cake is the base. The most expensive is the decoration. So when touching up a cake for weight control, producers have to use the most expensive ingredient to do so because it's on the outside, right? You bake the bases too long, you evaporate too much water, then what do? More decoration is the replacement. Slice a bit too much off the top of, say, a round base that we're layering to create a flat surface. Guess what? You have to use more decoration if you need to replace it. Conversely, if it's way too heavy, you've got to pull the whole cake that may be finished off the line, rework it completely by scraping all the decoration off of it and starting over. The other pain points that we've already briefly discussed, they include the people element, as well as the changeover time and the sanitation elements. Now, regarding the skills gap, when we automate these lines, the equipment we use is much more advanced. It's lots of dynamic motion control specifically. These systems require a higher level of training and expertise to operate, to maintain, to troubleshoot. Now, of course, Middleby is here to hold our customers' hands throughout their entire life cycle of the machine, but the equipment technology itself will draw a much more curious and talented workforce than before. We guarantee performance of the line from mixing all the way to packaging. So a complete, highly sophisticated, automated decorated line solution from a single expert.
I mean, that is crazy. Like the way the technology has advanced, that's fascinating. This is one of the most indulgent baked goods. And obviously, like the market is healthy, as you described, but we are also in this era of being hyper focused on health and wellness. So that has to be impacting the market. When you put all of these technical aspects together and then you put it in context with having to change and adjust for maybe reduced sugar or a different serving size, how does Middleby help with that?
No, good question. So, I would say regarding decorated cakes, largely we've been given a pass up to now because it is an acceptable indulgence to be consumed in moderation. So even people, myself included, that are watching everything else that we eat, we're unwilling to give up that thing that is so special, right? I would say in the industrial space now, we see our large producers that are using these sugar-based icings move more towards the European Asian style, which are fat-based creams, which are a much more mellow, different texture, actually have a much more rich flavor profile. And so that has changed for sure. But like I said before, that product is much more difficult to process. So the reality is to convert that equipment over is not a conversion process. Many times it's a replacement process. So this is where I would say we have a huge advantage because we have 3 fantastic innovation centers in the bakery group. We've got the one here in Plano, which you've been to, one in India, then our newest one, which is just north of Venice in Italy. It's kind of equivalent to like a Starbucks reserve If you've ever been to something like that, it's just a very special experience that kind of delivers on every bakery imagination using, our Middleby equipment. So we have small decoration lines there. So, in all the mixing concepts that are necessary to do either sugar-based icing or fat-based cream, we can do all those things. So then the customer can see it for themselves, get used to it, maybe change their own formulation, but get comfortable with the equipment and start to visualize how that can really change and revolutionize their business in a certain way.
Okay, I just have one last question. Speaking of being able to come into those innovation centers and try out new things and test products, what is the easiest way for a cake manufacturer to get in touch and learn more about Middleby's offerings with cake production?
I mean, the easiest way, whether it's in cake category or it's bread and bun or artisan bread, whatever it is, the best place to go is start at middleby.com. Go to food processing, which you'll see a tab there for food processing, quite easy. And then in that section, there's also another tab, full line solutions. And one of those full line solutions is cakes and muffins together. It's very simple. There's a button you push that says request a quote. You fill out a little form, immediately sends out to our whole decorated cake muffin team. That kicks it all off.
I love it. Well, Scott, thank you so much for having such a robust conversation with me about one of my favorite topics, cake. And it's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Same with you. Thank you so much, Joni.